Hello students, I am Nisha. Welcome back to my channel. In the previous video, we finished exercise 3.3. Now we are going to start exercise 3.4, which is the last exercise of this chapter. Before we start the exercise, let us understand few important concepts which will help us to understand the exercise easily. Okay, so now we are going to understand some spatial quadrilaterals or few more quadrilaterals for this exercise. The first one is rhombus. What is a rhombus? In rhombus, you can see that all the four sides are equal and the diagonals of the rhombus are perpendicular bisector of one another. Now if you can see these diagonals, they are perpendicular bisector of each other, means they bisect each other at 90 degree. Here if you find these angles, this will always be 90 degree. Okay. The next one is rectangle. This is very simple. You have already studied rectangle in your previous classes. Here all angles are equal. All the angles in the in this rectangle are equal and they are 90 degree. They are equiangular. Now each angle is right angle. It is 90 degree. Then opposite sides are equal. Here you can see this side and this side. These two sides are equal, and these two sides are equal. So opposite sides in a rectangle are equal. Then diagonals bisect each other. Here the diagonals, they bisect each other. Diagonals bisect each other. Now moving on to the next, that is a square. This is a square. Square is also very simple. You already know this. You have studied again this in previous classes many times. So all sides are equal. In a square, all the sides are of equal length. Diagonals bisect each other. They are of equal length and are perpendicular to one another. Let us understand now. Diagonals bisect each other. Diagonals bisect each other means they are of equal length. Whenever it is said that diagonals bisect each other, then this part and this part, they are equal. This part and this part, they are equal. And when I say that diagonals are perpendicular to each other, that means here they form always angle of 90 degree. Okay, so now you can see here in rhombus and square, the diagonals are perpendicular bisector, while here the diagonals are only bisect each other, they are not perpendicular to each other. Okay, so these properties of this quadrilaterals will help you to solve the exercise easily. So let us start with the exercise. Okay students, let us start exercise 3.4. The first question is straight, true or false. The first statement is all rectangles are square. So let us find it out. Now what we will do, we'll be using the properties which we have discussed previously. Okay, so let us draw a rectangle here. If I draw a rectangle here and if I draw a square here, now the first property which I say is opposite sides of a rectangle are equal. Yes, but in a square all the sides are equal. Okay, so the first property of rectangle does not match to that of a square. So here we can say that all rectangles are square is false. So you can write here false. Okay, moving on to the next. All rhombuses are parallelogram. Here they are asking that all rhombuses are parallelogram. Let us draw a rhombus and a parallelogram and let us compare the properties of rhombus with parallelogram. Okay students, now moving on to the next question. All rhombuses are parallelogram. Let us now understand this. All rhombuses are parallelogram. Let us draw a rhombus first. And let us draw a parallelogram. Now in these two we can see, first thing, all the sides are equal. Here also all the sides are equal. We can also say that parallel sides, opposite sides are parallel, and here also opposite sides are parallel. Here opposite sides are parallel and opposite sides are parallel. So we can say that all rhombuses are parallelogram. It is true. Now moving on to the next. Next says all squares are rhombuses and rectangles. So we have to compare squares with rhombus also and squares with rectangle also. Let us first compare square with rhombus. Okay, if I take a square and if I take a rhombus, now here we can easily see that in square all the sides are equal, whereas in rhombus also all the sides are equal. Also in square opposite sides are parallel In the same way, in rhombus also opposite sides are parallel. So if I say that all squares can be rhombus, that will be true. But we have to also say that all squares can be rhombus, are rhombus. So let us compare squares with rectangle. So square and a rectangle. So first thing we can see here is opposite sides are equal. Here in rectangle opposite sides are equal. So in squares also we can see opposite sides are equal. Okay. Next, all the angles are 90 degree. Here also all the angles are 90 degrees. So this is also true. All squares are rectangles. So this statement is true. Okay students, till now I think it's clear. Now moving on to next. Okay students, now moving on to D. It says all squares are parallelograms. Let us see. I draw a square here and I draw a parallelogram here. Okay, now in a parallelogram all the sides are equal. Yes. While in square also all the sides are equal. Opposite sides are parallel. So here also opposite sides are parallel. So all squares are not parallelogram. It is false because all the squares are parallelograms, which we have proved here. So this is false. Now moving on to all kites are rhombuses. So let us first draw kites. And rhombus. Okay, so E says all kites are rhombuses. Here if you see, when you look at this shape kite, you know that opposites adjacent sides are equal. इसके आसपास वाली जो sides होती है वो equal होती है. This side is equal to this side and this side is equal to this side. Whereas if I talk about rhombus, it has all the sides equal. So rhombus की सारी sides equal होती है, पर kite के सारे side equal नहीं होती है. Only adjacent sides equal होती है. So this statement is again false. Now moving on to next one, all rhombuses are kites. Okay, so पहले rhombus draw करो. Then when I talk about kite, so पहले kite की क्या property थी जो हमने पहले बताई थी? Adjacent sides are equal. Here also adjacent sides are equal. These two sides are equal and these two sides are also equal. Okay, and apart of that, we can say that here opposite sides are parallel. Here also opposite sides are parallel. Here also opposite sides are parallel. Yes. So here the statement will be true. You may find it little confusing, students. Okay. So be particular about the question. Okay. Okay, students. Now G. In this, they are asking all parallelograms are trapezium. Now, if you recall your trapezium, it is something like this. Trapezium में एक ही property सबसे ज़्यादा common होती है, वो one pair of opposite sides are parallel. ये एक property बहुत ही ज़्यादा होती है इसमें. अब parallelogram में अगर यही property available है, that means this statement is true. Here in a trapezium, one pair of opposite sides are parallel. Here also these opposite sides are parallel. Yes, so that means this statement stands true. So this is true. In the same way, again we are comparing it with trapezium. All squares are trapezium. So again you know what is trapezium में सबसे important property होती है कि one of the opposite sides are parallel. Only one pair of opposite side. मतलब ये दोनों parallel नहीं है क्योंकि ये तो ऐसे slant जाती है. सिर्फ ये side ही parallel होती है. अब square में भी क्या कोई एक टू ऑपोजिट साइड्स पैरेलल आती है स्क्वायर में. अगर आप स्क्वायर ड्रॉ करो तो हाँ, अगर ये दो ऑपोजिट साइड्स ले ले तो ये दो भी पैरेलल होती है. दैट मींस दिस all squares are trapezium. It is true. Okay students, so now we have finished with question number 1 here. Moving on to question number 2. Okay students, now question number 2. Quickly we'll start question number 2. Question number 2 says identify all the quadrilaterals that have 4 sides of equal length. अभी हमने सारी प्रॉपर्टीज डिस्कस की है. इसमें से ऐसे कौन से दो quadrilaterals हैं जिनकी चारों साइड, all the 4 sides equal है? Just recall students. First one, if you remember, which shape is this? Square. All the sides are equal. Yes. Then which shape is this? All sides are equal. Okay. Now the second B says you have to find all the quadrilaterals that have four right angles. Four right angles. So जैसे स्क्वायर के तो राइट एंगल्स होते ही हैं, स्क्वायर और कौन सा है, rectangle also have all the four angles as right angle, that is 90 degree. This is rectangle. Okay students, now moving on to question number 3. Okay students, question number 3. Question number 3 says explain how a square is a quadrilateral, a parallelogram, a rhombus and a rectangle. So we have to prove here that is how can a square be a quadrilateral, how can be a square be a parallelogram, how can a square be a rhombus, and how can a square be a rectangle. So let us do that. Now what is a quadrilateral? Quad means four, lateral means sides. Any figure having four sides is a quadrilateral. A square is a four-sided figure, so it is a quadrilateral. Simple. A square has four sides, so it is a quadrilateral. Okay students, as simple as that. Now also, how can a square be parallelogram? What is one of the most important property of parallelogram? Opposite sides are parallel. In square also opposite sides are parallel. In a square opposite sides are parallel. So it is a parallelogram. Now a rhombus. Now in rhombus, in square all the four sides are equal, and in rhombus also all the four sides are equal. So again we can say that square is a rhombus. In a square all four are equal, so it is a rhombus. Again, in a rectangle, what is common that you can find a rectangle in a square? Recall students, very simple, all the four angles are 90 degree. Okay, so in a rectangle, in a square, all the four angles are 90 degree, so it is a rectangle. Okay, so we have done question number 3 also students. Now moving on to question number 4. Okay students, moving on to question number 4. Question number 4 says you have to name the quadrilateral whose diagonals bisect each other. All the quadrilaterals recall wherein the diagonals bisect each other. Okay, we have earlier studied the properties wherein we have also discussed the diagonals wherein they bisect each other. So here in square the diagonals bisect each other, in rectangle, then in rhombus and in parallelogram. In all these figures, the diagonals bisect each other. Also, you have to find now the diagonals that are perpendicular bisector of each other. So you have to name the quadrilaterals whose diagonals are perpendicular bisector of each other. So here we can say the shapes wherein all the sides are equal. That means square and rhombus. Perpendicular bisector means, what is the meaning of perpendicular bisector? Means when this is a square, suppose in this square the diagonals are perpendicular bisector, means they intersect each other at 90 degree. They form a 90 degree angles where they bisect. This is what is called perpendicular bisector of each other. Now also you have to name the quadrilaterals whose diagonals are equal. The diagonals are equal in square and rectangle. Okay students, so now we have finished with question number 4. Now moving on to question number 5. We have finished with question number 4 and now moving on to question number 5. Okay students, now moving on to question number 5. Question number 5 says, explain why a rectangle is a convex quadrilateral. Now if you remember, when we started the chapter, we discussed what is convex and what is concave. Okay, so now when I draw a rectangle, see, this is a rectangle and they are telling it is a convex quadrilateral. Now when we talk about the diagonals, it is in the interior, sorry, the diagonals are in the interior of the rectangle. Okay, but if I draw a shape like this, okay, then this is a concave quadrilateral. Why? Because there is a dent inside. It is a curve, it goes towards the interior, or towards it dents towards the interior of the figure, while the quadrilateral, the diagonals are inside the quadrilateral. Okay, so that is why we can say that rectangle is a convex quadrilateral. Okay students, so this was question number 5. Now moving on to question number 6. Okay students, moving on to question number 6 now. Question number 6 says, ABC is a right angle triangle and O is the midpoint of the side opposite to the right angle. Now if I draw ABC as a right angle side, this is a right angle and side opposite to right angle is this, so we have a midpoint here, and that is, the midpoint is named as O. This is what is given. Okay, so you have to explain why O is equidistant from A, B and C. You have to prove why this midpoint is equidistant from A, B and C. Now what we can do is, we can extend here, we can just draw AD, DC and OD. If we draw here like this, we will be able to carry on our sum. So we can just write that join AD, DC and OD. Okay, so here ABCD is a rectangle, also AD is parallel to BC, side AD is parallel to side BC and side AB is parallel to CD. So it is a parallelogram. So ABCD is a parallelogram. So O is midpoint of diagonals AC and BD. As O is the midpoint of diagonals, we can say that as O is the midpoint of the diagonals, O is equidistant from A, B and C. Okay, so this statement you can write here students. How we can say why? Because this is midpoint of AC and this is midpoint of BD. That's why we can say that O is equidistant from A, B and C. Okay, so we have proved here, and question 6 gets over here. We have finished with chapter number 3. Now we will be moving on with chapter number 4, that is data handling, in our next video. Thank you so much students and have a nice day.